Hello developers, welcome back to the programming fields. I'm Umesh Rana and this is the fifth part of our Laravel 11 Fortify authentication series. In the last video, we set up email verification functionality when the user will try to log in without verifying the registered email address. That will force the user to verify the email address first before login to the account. Also, we configured the email settings so that users could receive email verification links directly in their inbox. And on the backend, we used Laravel Fortify to manage the logic and security for these actions. Now today, we are going to explore another essential feature, that is two-factor authentication. This feature adds an extra layer of security to your application, and this requires users to verify their identity through an additional authentication code. And usually this can be generated by an authenticator app just like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. By enabling two-factor authentication, we ensure that even if someone gains access to a user's password, they won't be able to log in without this authenticator code. This makes the application significantly more secure. So in this video, we will go step by step through how to enable and configure two-factor authentication using Laravel Fortify. We will also take a look at how to handle both authentication codes and recovery codes as well for a seamless user experience. So without further delay, let's jump right into the implementation of this two-factor authentication. So before getting started, let's quickly come to the terminal, and if we'll check the route list, here we don't have the two-factor authentication related routes. Now in order to enable the routes, firstly, we will have to enable that two-factor authentication feature in the Fortify configuration file. So let's come to the code editor, come under the config, here we have the fortify.php. If we'll scroll down to the feature section, here we have the two-factor authentication. Let's enable this. Okay. And first time, I will comment these two options, confirm and confirm password. Now let's come to the terminal again, and if we'll check the route list, this added a bunch of new routes for the two-factor authentication, recovery codes, secret key, and two-factor challenge. Now we can implement this functionality in the application. So let's come to the browser now, and let me log in through the registered email address. I have the password as 123456778. Yes, I have logged in now. Now if we'll check the route list again, we will have to enable the two-factor authentication, and for this, Laravel Fortify provides one post route, that is two-factor.enable. And currently we are using Laravel Breeze package for the front-end implementation, but Laravel Breeze does not provide the two-factor authentication feature. So we don't have the two-factor authentication view in the Laravel Breeze package. So we will have to create this form manually in order to enable and disable this two-factor authentication feature. So what I will do, inside this profile settings, I will add one more subsection here for enabling and disabling two-factor authentication. Currently in the profile section, we have the profile information, password update and delete account feature. So similar to these, I will add one more subsection here in order to manage the two-factor authentication feature. So let's come to the code editor again, and let's scroll down to the resources, views. Inside this profile, we have the edit blade. In this edit blade, we have three subsections included. This is for update profile information, this is for password, and this is for account deletion. So after this profile information, I want to add one more subsection in order to manage the two-factor authentication. So simply I will duplicate this section here. This is for profile information. Here I want to add this for two-factor authentication. This is for password update. And lastly, this is for account deletion. Alright. Here we will have to change the view. So I will create another view for this, and this path is included from the profile.partials folder. So inside the profile, we have the partials folder. So I will change this to two-factor authentication, and inside this partials, I will create one view as two-factor authentication.blade.php. Now inside this, we will have to add a form and there will be the submit action. So what I will do, I will simply replicate this update profile information form. I will copy it from here and I will paste it inside this two-factor authentication, and I will modify this. So I will change this title as two-factor authentication, and regarding this subtitle, I will change this to add additional security to your account using two-factor authentication. Okay, let me dock this window. Here we have the form, and this form action is triggering to user profile information dot update. So instead of this, we will have to add the two-factor authentication dot enable. Okay, so let's change this to two-factor dot enable. Now we don't need this put method because this route is expecting post method. Okay, so this is done. Now here we don't need these input fields, so I will remove this. Only I need this submit button here. So I will change this text to enable. This is fine. Let's come to the browser. Let me refresh this page. Here we have the two-factor authentication section. Now in order to add the form action for enabling or disabling, firstly we will have to check if the two-factor authentication is enabled for the logged in user. So what I will do, I will add dump auth user. So here we will say authenticated user data. Let's come to the browser. Let me refresh now. Yes, we can see we have the authenticated user data coming from users table, and if we'll expand this, here we can see we have the attributes as two-factor secret and two-factor recovery codes, and currently these two fields are null. So this indicates the two-factor authentication is not enabled for this current user. So firstly we will have to enable this by clicking on this enable button. So this will make one post request and that will enable the two-factor authentication. Let me click on this. Yes, that post request is executed, and if we'll scroll down, here we could not see that success message. So if we'll expand these attributes again, now we have the two-factor secret and two-factor recovery codes. Alright, so firstly I will check one condition for the current user. If the two-factor authentication is enabled, that means if the two-factor secret is generated, then we will change this button text to disable. So let's add this condition. Here I will add one condition, auth user two-factor secret is there, then the text will be disable, else it will be enable, and in order to display the success message, I will display the session status. So I will add dump session status. Okay, let me remove this auth user now. Let me refresh. Yeah, so currently the two-factor authentication is enabled. That's why we are getting the disable option here. And here we will change this button type to danger. So we will have the button in the red background color. Let's change this. So what I will do, I will add if directive, and I will cut this condition from here and I will add it here. If we have two-factor secret enabled, then I will call another button, and if it is not there, then I will call this primary button here. Okay, and I will remove this condition from here, and instead of this primary button, I will call the danger button here. If we'll check this component, inside this components we have the danger button added here. So I will call this button here. So let me copy this, I will add it here, and instead of primary I will change this to danger button. Same thing we will have to change it here, and instead of enable, the text will be disable. Let's check now. Let me refresh. Yes, we have the disable button in the red background color. Now for disabling the two-factor authentication, we will have to change the form action method. So if we'll check the route list again, for the disabling we have another route as two-factor.disable, and this needed delete request. So we will have to add one more condition here regarding the form action. So what I will do, I will add this two-factor secret condition here for this form route. So I will check if two-factor secret is there. Then this will call another route as two-factor.disable, else it will call two-factor.enable. And here we have the form method as post by default. So I will have to change form method to delete if the two-factor authentication is enabled. So inside this if condition, I will add method directive here, and this method will be delete. Okay, this is done. Let's come to the browser now. Let me refresh, and now let's try to disable the two-factor authentication. Let's click on this. Yes, the two-factor authentication is disabled, and here we received the session status as two-factor authentication disabled. And if we will try to click on enable again, the session status is two-factor authentication enabled. So we will have to add the condition to display the session message. So let's add it. Here I will add PHP syntax, and I will define one variable as session status, and I will capture this here using the session function, and I will check if session status has two-factor authentication enabled. Then I will change the message as two-factor authentication is enabled, else I will add one more condition. If the session status has two-factor authentication disabled, okay, then I will add message as two-factor authentication is disabled. Alright, so we have added this ternary operator for this condition. Now I will check if we have the session status. So I will remove this condition from here, and instead of this static message, I will add this dynamic message here. This is done. Let me remove this dump here, and here let me increase this timeout to 4 seconds. Let me come to the browser now. Let's refresh. Currently two-factor authentication is enabled. Now if we will try to click on disable, yes, two-factor authentication is disabled, and here we got that success message. Again if we will try to click on enable, yes, this is enabled now. Now while enabling and disabling the two-factor authentication, we need to confirm through the current password, so that this will detect that you are authenticated user and you want to enable and disable that feature. And for this, Laravel Fortify provides option in the configuration of Fortify. So if we will come under the Fortify features, here we have the confirm password option. So let's enable this confirm password to true. Okay, let's come to the browser. Let's refresh now, and now if we will try to click on disable, here it redirected to the user confirm password. So currently this is expecting one form in order to confirm the password. So this will capture the entered password, and then this will perform that action to enable or disable the two-factor authentication. So we will have to add the confirm password view in the Laravel Fortify service provider, as we already did for login, register and password reset. So let's come to the Fortify service provider. Under the app providers, we have the Fortify service provider. Here we will have to add password confirm view. I will add Fortify : confirm password view. Again we will have to add this anonymous function, and we will have to render that view. So before rendering the view, let's check if the view is available by Laravel Breeze package. So if we will come to resources, views, under the auth folder, we have the confirm password blade. Okay, so we can render that view, return view. So we will write auth.confirm password. Okay, so this will open this confirm password view. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh now. Yes, that confirm password view is rendered successfully. Now before confirming, let me check the route first. So we have the post route as user confirm password, and this route name is password.confirm. Now if we'll come to the password confirm view, and if we'll check the form action, we have the correct form action as password.confirm. So this will work as expectedly. Now let's come to the browser. And let's confirm the current password here. So I will add 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. If I will click on confirm, yes, password is confirmed. Now here we can disable this two-factor authentication. Let me click on disable now. Yes, that is disabled now. Now if the two-factor authentication is enabled, then we will have to display the QR code here, so that by scanning that QR code, we will get the authentication code so that you can enter that recovery code while login. So in order to display the QR code, we will check out the official documentation of Laravel Fortify, and if we scroll down under the two-factor authentication, we will have to add one trait as two-factor authenticable. So this will be added in the user model, so that this will apply the two-factor authentication for the user. So let's come to the user model first. Here we will have to import that use Laravel Fortify two-factor authenticable. Alright, after importing this trait, we will have to use it here. So I will add two-factor authenticable. This is done. So this is applied for the user. Now in the next step, we will have to display that QR code, because we have already implemented this functionality to enable and disable two-factor authentication. So for displaying the QR code, we will have to add this two-factor QR code SVG function. Okay, so let's come to the code editor. Under the two-factor authentication view, here if the two-factor authentication is enabled, then I will display that QR code. Okay, so I will add auth user two-factor QR code SVG function. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh the application. Here we can see this printed the SVG in the HTML format, but here we needed the QR code image. So for that, we will have to change the syntax here. So instead of double curly braces, I will use single curly braces and double exclamation mark. So this will render the HTML. Let's refresh now. Yes, now we have two-factor authentication QR code. I will keep this in a div so that this disable button will come in the next row. So what I will do, I will remove this flag center from here. Okay, let me refresh now. And here we will have to give some space from top. I will wrap this QR code in a div. So I will add class as margin bottom of 6, because this is Tailwind CSS. Let's refresh now. This is fine now. Now we will have to scan this QR code in the Authenticator app. So you can use any Authenticator app, that is Google or Microsoft. So I will use Microsoft Authenticator. In the Authenticator app, I will scan this QR code. Yes, the QR code is scanned now. And if I will log out this application, and now if I will try to log in, so I will add my email address. Password is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. If I will click on login, here it said two-factor challenge view response is not instantiable, because while login, this checked if the two-factor authentication is enabled, then instead of dashboard page, this redirected to the two-factor challenge route. If we will come to the route list, if we will check, we have a two-factor challenge routes here. So we will have to add this blade file in order to render that two-factor challenge view. Okay, so let's come to the code editor. So inside resources views auth, I will create one blade file as two-factor challenge.blade.php. Okay, and we will have to render this view in the Fortify service provider again. So I will come to the Fortify service provider, and here we will have to render that two-factor challenge view. Okay, let's add this Fortify two-factor challenge view. Inside this, we will render that blade file. So I will render auth.two-factor challenge, and here we will have to design this form. Currently, if we will refresh, this rendered this blank blade file. We will have to design this two-factor challenge form here. So what I will do, I will come to this confirm password blade. I will copy this form from here and I will add it inside two-factor challenge. Okay, let me dock this. Here we have the subtitle, so I will change this to two-factor challenge. And here we have the form action, so we will have to provide the form action of this two-factor challenge. We have the two-factor challenge, and this route is provided by Laravel Fortify. Okay, so let's add this, and this will be two-factor dot login. Okay, and here I will customize this label and input field. From here we will capture the recovery code. So let's change this to code. This is text input. ID I will change this to code. Type will be text. Name will be code. And in the autocomplete I will change this to one-time code. Okay. I will add one more attribute as input mode, and this will be numeric. This is fine. I will add margin here from empty 4, and regarding this errors get password, I will change this to code here. This is fine, and I will change this button text as login. This is fine. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh now. Yes, we have the two-factor challenge here. We will have to provide the recovery code. So I will change this description as meaningful. Let's customize this. Please confirm access to your account by entering the authentication code provided by Authenticator app. Okay, this is fine. Let's refresh now. Yes. Now here, if we'll try to click on login without providing that authentication code, this triggered the validation error message as provided two-factor authentication code was invalid. Now I will provide that correct code from the Authenticator app. So I will add 708206. Now if I will try to click on login, yes, we can see I have successfully logged in by entering that authentication code. If I will log out now, again if I will try to click on login, again it redirected to two-factor authentication. Okay, every time when you will try to log in, this will ask for that authentication code. Now let me provide another authentication code. If I will click on login, yes, I'm logged in now. If we'll come to the profile, if you will disable this two-factor authentication, let's confirm the password and let's disable this. Yes, two-factor authentication is disabled now. If we log out and if we'll try to click on login, it didn't ask for that authentication code, and here I'm redirected to the dashboard page. Okay, now let's come to the profile settings again, and let me enable the two-factor authentication again. Yes, I've enabled now. Now in some cases, if you don't have the phone access and you have enabled the two-factor authentication, then every time when you will try to log in, this will ask for that authentication code. Alright, and if you don't have your phone access, then you will not be allowed to log into the application. But don't worry, Laravel provides another feature, that is recovery code. So in this case, if you are not allowed to access your phone, then you will be able to log in through that recovery code. So let's implement that recovery code functionality as well. So if we will come to the code editor, inside two-factor authentication blade, when we dumped and die user records, then we saw two-factor recovery codes. Inside this, we can see we have two-factor recovery codes. Okay, so we will have to display these two-factor recovery codes, and for this Laravel Fortify provides one function. If we will scroll down, here we have the recovery codes. Okay, so let's call this function recovery codes. If we will refresh, we have the recovery codes here. I will convert this to array, and I will iterate these recovery codes in order to display it here. And here I will display that recovery code, for each recovery codes as $recovery code, and here I will display that recovery code. Better I can add it in a paragraph tag. So I will copy this and I will add it here. Okay, this is fine. Come to the browser. Let's refresh now. If we'll come down, here we have the recovery codes. So let me add one title here. So better I can copy this, and here I will add it, and I will change this to recovery codes. Okay, let's refresh now. Yeah, we have the recovery codes here, and I will add it in a div. Okay, let's refresh now. Yeah, we have the recovery codes. Now in order to implement this recovery code functionality, you will have to copy these entire recovery codes and will keep it safe somewhere in editor. So here I will paste these all recovery codes. Okay, and I will log out the application. Now when I will try to log in, here it asked for the authentication confirmation code. So instead of this authentication code, here I want to use recovery code. Okay, therefore I will add one hyperlink here to change the form here, so that when we will click on that hyperlink, that will help toggling this form from the authenticator app to recovery code form. Okay, so inside this form, let's add one hyperlink here. So I will come to the code editor. In the two-factor authentication challenge, here I will add one hyperlink. So inside this, I will add one hyperlink. So I will copy that from login blade. In the login blade, we have one hyperlink here. So I will copy this and I will add it inside this div, and I will change this to use recovery code. Okay, and we will have to change this hyperlink here. So I want to navigate to the same route with one query string parameter. So I will add the same form action as two-factor.login. Okay, and here in the parameter, I will use recovery and I will set this to true. Okay, this is fine. Let me refresh now. Here we have the recovery code. I will give some space between these. So here I will add flags center class, and inside this primary button, I will add a class as margin start of 4. Let's refresh now. Yes. Now when I will click on this use recovery code, this appended one query string as recovery 1. So we will have to capture this query string inside that Fortify service provider function. So I will come to the Fortify service provider. Here in the two-factor challenge view, I will capture that request parameter. Okay, so I will define one variable as recovery equals, and I will capture this from request recovery, and by default I will set this to false. Okay, and here in the view I will pass in the form of compact. This is fine. Okay, now we will have to capture this recovery here in the two-factor authentication challenge. So I will add dump $recovery. Let's refresh now. Yes, we are getting 1, that means this is true. And if I will remove this query string, this is false. So we will have to add one condition based on this recovery value. If it is true, then we will display another form here, and in that form, basically that will capture the recovery code from that input. Okay, so let's change this. Here I will add one condition. This is for authentication code. I will add condition as if not $recovery, then I will display this input field here, else I will display another input. So I will simply copy this HTML and I will add it here, and this will be for recovery code, and here I will change this label for as recovery code. This is for recovery code. Type will be text, name will be recovery underscore code, and this input mode numeric is not required because this can accept string as well, and I will set autofocus here as well. This is one time code, and while fetching the validation error message, this will fetch from the recovery code. This is fine. Now regarding this hyperlink, based on the recovery query string, we will have to change this. Okay. So I will add condition. If recovery is there, then I will copy and paste this route here. Else, if recovery is not there, means if it is authentication code, then this will set the recovery to true. Okay. Same thing, I will have to add one condition here for this hyperlink label. So I will use if not recovery, then this will display the text as use recovery code, else use authentication code. Alright, this is fine. Let's save and come to the browser. Let me refresh now. This is authenticator app. If I will click on use recovery code, this changed this label to recovery code, and here I will change this description as well. I will add condition. If it is not recovery, then this will display this description message. Else I will copy and add same message, and I will modify this as please confirm access to your account by entering the recovery code provided by two-factor authentication. Alright, this is fine. Let's save and come to the browser again. Let's refresh. Okay, the message has been changed now. Now if I will try to click on use authentication code, yes, this will accept authentication code, and if I will click on use recovery code, this will accept the recovery code. So we already tested the authentication code login. Now we will check through the recovery code. So we already copied and pasted the recovery codes from the application and we kept it here. So now let's copy one of the recovery code and come to the application and let's paste it here. Now let's try to click on login. Yes, we can see. Now we have logged in through that recovery code as well. Alright, if we'll come to the profile and if we'll scroll down, here the recovery codes have been changed now, because previously we had different recovery codes, but when we logged in successfully using the recovery code, those recovery codes have been reset now. Okay. Now in the case, if you want to regenerate these recovery codes, Laravel Fortify provides another route. So if we'll check out the route list, we have a post route as user/two-factor recovery codes. And for this we will have to create a form, and in that form action we will have to add this post route. So let's implement that as well, and we will have to add it here inside this two-factor authentication blade. Okay, so what I will do, we have the form closed here, so I will just cut this form and I will keep it here inside these buttons only. Alright, also this div, let me format it. Yes, now regarding the status, I will copy this div and I will keep it here and I will close this div here. Okay, now before the session status, I will create one more form. Method will be post and action I will set as URL user/two-factor recovery codes. Alright, and inside this form we will have to add this CSRF token, and I will create one submit button. So simply I will copy this primary button here. Okay, and I will change this button text as regenerate recovery codes. This is for regenerating recovery codes. This is fine. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh now. If you scroll down, we have another button as regenerate recovery codes. But here I want to keep this button inside this recovery codes block, so that this button will be visible only when we have enabled the two-factor authentication. So we will have to keep it inside this condition. So what I will do, I will move these submit buttons just above here. So what I will do, I will cut these QR and recovery codes from here. Okay, and that I will keep it inside this another div. Okay, and also we'll have to add this condition. If we have two-factor authentication enable, then I will add this condition so that it will display the authentication code and recovery codes. Also this form. Alright, and I will and that if block here. This is fine. So for regenerating recovery codes, we will have to check if that two-factor authentication is enabled. Let's come to the browser. Let's refresh now. We'll scroll down. We have the disable button at the top, and thereafter we have the QR code, and here at the bottom we have the recovery codes. Okay, here we can add margin. So in the QR code, I will add margin top as 4. Let's refresh. Yes, this is correct now. Now if we'll click on regenerate recovery codes, this is asking for password confirmation. So I will add password. I will confirm. Now when I will try to regenerate the recovery codes, and if we'll scroll down, yes, you can see the recovery codes have been changed now. Every time when we'll click on regenerate, this will change the entire recovery codes. So by using this way, you can reset your recovery codes. Okay. Now if we'll click on disable, this is disabled now, and now we are not able to see that recovery codes and that QR code. Okay. Again, if you will enable it, yes, we have the QR code visible and we have the recovery codes as well. Let's copy these recovery codes again. Let's keep it safe here. Okay. Let's come to the application. Let's log out now. Now if we'll try to log in, let me enter email address and password. Yes, this redirected to the authentication code first. Now instead of authentication code, I will use recovery code here. So I will click on recovery code, and here we will have to add the recovery code. So let's add any of the recovery code. This time I will add this last one. Let's copy and let's paste it here. Now let's try to log in. Yes, we have logged in now. And there you have it. We have successfully implemented two-factor authentication in our Laravel 11 application using Fortify. With this feature in place, your app is now more secure and your users can have peace of mind knowing that their accounts are protected by an extra layer of security. Remember, security is crucial for any application, and adding features like two-factor authentication is an excellent way to safeguard user data while maintaining a smooth login experience. If you enjoyed this video and this entire series, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more practical Laravel tutorials. Also, drop any questions if you have in the comment section, and I will be happy to help you out. So thanks for watching. Stay secure, keep coding, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Until then, happy coding.